Pranam Partho.
Pranam ji.
Partho, welcome to the next podcast on Ashtavakra Gita shlokas. We'll just continue on the first chapter. There was a last few.
I think today we hear the last few slokas and
Yes.
bring the first adhyaya to the end.
So let's discuss them. I think last time we had finished the one Nirpeksho, Nirvikaro, Nirbaraha, Shitalasya,
Yes.
which is that you are the unconditioned, immutable.
Immutable, formless.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's move on. I think there are 2-3 shlokas now. Maybe we can
And there are 3 left. So
Yes.
that finishes the teaching of Ashtavakra to Janaka.
highly distilled first chapter. I mean, I think this
Absolutely
is
highly distilled, yes.
and
Do remember that it was through this first adhyaya, highly distilled Vedanta, that awakens Janak to the truth of Vedanta, truth of the self. He realizes himself. And the second adhyaya is his awakening.
okay.
Yeah.
First is the enlightenment.
First
Second is the
the
awakening.
teaching.
Okay. First is the teaching.
And remember, this is not intellectual teaching.
Yes, yes.
Being like Ashtavakra does not teach intellectually. And a being like Janak does not learn intellectually.
Yes.
So this is a spiritual transmission going on at a very subtle level of the consciousness, where not only is Ashtavakra telling him the truth, Tattva Gyan, but along with the Tattva Gyan comes the sheer force of the realization itself. This is a realized being telling a highly ripe individual, ripe for a realization, the truth of realization. Of course, because if Janak had not been ripened, mature enough in his consciousness, then Ashtavakra probably wouldn't have imparted such distilled, essential knowledge, tattva gyan, to him. Because gyan is always given according to the ability of the disciple to receive, the patrata. So this is a dialogue that is A, happening between 2 extraordinary individuals, and B, and 2, at a very subtle plane. This is not the plane of the intellect.
And do you think they were conversing whilst going through this, or could it have been telepathic, or doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter, really.
Doesn't matter. Yeah,
I mean,
but
if it were telepathy, they wouldn't be using so much of language.
yeah,
Sanskrit or English or any language for that. Telepathy doesn't...
you're right.
You don't have to talk in words.
Yeah.
But more than telepathy is the direct transmission, consciousness to consciousness transmission, where you don't use language at all. So if you have to put it down as a scripture, then you will need the language. So you'll have to bring it down to a certain mental level. So I don't know, it must have been a kind of a supercharged dialogue that used to happen between Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. They did converse, but
Yes.
it was a highly supercharged conversation.
Yeah.
And again, we have the incident of Ramana. When he would come across a ripe disciple, he wouldn't talk. The entire transmission would happen in silence. So we have that too. And there were many instances Ramakrishna himself wouldn't be talking. He would just be transmitting to Vivekananda, because Vivekananda again was an extraordinary disciple. Extraordinary disciple to an extraordinary master. Some of the profoundest teachings of Sri Aurobindo were given not through words or through letters. They were communicated directly. And one of the most advanced disciples of the ashram, Norinda, has actually said in so many words that the deepest teachings from the Guru, from Sri Aurobindo, never came in words.
I think.
They would transfer entire states of being.
Wow.
Sorry, you were saying something.
Yeah. I was just thinking, one of the takeaways I take from some of our discussions in this podcast and before are that for us mere mortals, how to still receive the best we can. The quietening of the mind, not filtering, not applying its own judgments and analysis.
For knowledge of this kind,
Yes.
Technically we call it Tattva Gyan. Tattva is essence, distilled essence. Tattva Gyan is, like I said, not intellectual Gyan. So for Tattva Gyan, the only way to receive it, as disciples did in the Upanishad times, the Upanishadic process of transmitting Gyan was always through silence, and the disciple used to be himself or herself in a deeply concentrated state, silent, concentrated state, to receive the Guru's teachings. So Tattva Gyan was always given and received in silence. Silence, by silence I mean silence of mind. And you're right, you're very right. No filtering. And how can any disciple sit down there and filter a realized being's words? It's not possible. I mean, what knowledge would the disciple have to filter the words of a fully realized being? So it has to be received in complete inner silence.
And the bigger challenge I see with the humans today, and especially the younger generations coming up, they are rarely in the moment. They're always elsewhere. They're always distracted. They're always focused on something else. They can't hold a quiet conversation without looking at their phone or a device or thinking about something else that happened in the past or may happen in the future.
Absolutely. You lost the capacity for concentration.
So we dissipate everything.
Absolutely. When I used to work with children, school children, I used to visit so many schools and do workshops. And one of the very interesting workshops I used to do with children was how to develop intelligence. And most people think, you're intelligent as nature made you, but you can't become more intelligent. You can become more informed. You can perhaps even become more knowledgeable, perhaps wiser, but you can't be more intelligent than what you are. But that's not true.
Yeah,
You can become infinitely more intelligent than what you are. But then we don't know how to develop intelligence. There is no way known to modern education. We have to go to yoga for it.
Yeah.
And only the yogic ways of developing, enhancing, raising intelligence to the next level. So when I used to do this workshop, in fact, I stopped doing it after a while because of the fact that there was no concentration in the children.
Yeah.
They just weren't prepared for concentration. Because preparation for concentration, as the mother always used to say, begins from the youngest possible age. And that's Swami Vivekananda, very famously Vivekananda said that when he was asked what is the one thing that you need in the Indian education system to produce extraordinary beings, and he said three things in his classical way: concentration, concentration, and concentration.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, in schools today, the only intelligent thing is to remember the tables of 13 times 17 or whatever. I mean, cramming things which are useless and relying on knowledge which is just acquired, crammed, and thrown away. I mean, and then showing it off.
And then you build bridges that collapse.
Anyways.
So engineering.
Yes. Ashtavakra, Shloka 18. Yes.
It's all related.
Yes.
Kunal.
It is. It is. So let's find out who we are.
So he goes on to say, he's talking about, he's giving again Tattva Gyan, that know the form, that which is in form, that which is embodied to be unreal, and the formless to be real, abiding, permanent. So sakaram is sakar, form with form. Sakaram anritam is not permanent, that which passes. Sakaram amritam. Vidhi is knowledge, of course. Nirakaram tu nischalam. So Nirakaram, the formless,
without-
is here Nishchalam means that which abides, that which doesn't change. So the real. So know that to be real, and not that which is in akar, which is sakar. And then, of course, he talks about the tattva gyan again. Eta tattva. This is the upadesh of tattva. Upadesh is, here upadesh is teaching. So the teaching of tattva gyan, tattva upadesh. So go by that old essential wisdom, and you will not be reborn. You will not need to be reborn. The possibility of rebirth will be eliminated. So, na punar bhavasambhavaha. It's a beautiful way of saying that identify with the nirakaram, and you will not have to take birth again. That's what he's really saying. But as long as you're identified with the sakara, you're bound to die, because that will change. It will cease to be, because it is not permanent. And then again he comes back to that. As I told you, he keeps coming back to the mirror and reflection thing. So the next sloka, again, he comes back to the mirror. Just as a mirror reflects everything that is cast upon it, but all these reflections are not real. Only the mirror is real. And the interior of the mirror, what is within the mirror, is real. So too, the self, the supreme self, which is real, it exists within and without the embodied being. And just as the mirror reflects, the self reflects the world. But that's not real. So, yathaiva adarsham, adarsham here is mirror. So just yathaiva adarsham, just as a mirror, madhyasthir, within itself, rupenta paristatu saha, the whatever it's reflecting is not real. Tathaiva, just like that, in the same way, tathaiva. Tathaivasmin sharira anta paritaha parmeshwaraha. So just in that way, the Supreme Self exists, pervades, permeates the body. It's not just like a pot. Outside the pot is the space. Inside the pot is the space. So inside the body is Brahma. Outside the body is Brahma. So that is Parameshwara. Parameshwara is, of course, the Supreme. And then, of course, the final verse is Ekam Sarvagatam Vyom. In fact, he comes to the ghat, to the pot example. So Ekam Sarvagatam Vyom Bahirantaryatha Ghate Nityam Nirantaram Brahma Sarva Bhuta Gane Tatha. So just as the same all-pervading space is inside and outside of a jar, so the self, Brahma, exists in all things, within and without. And with that, the teaching of Ashtavakra ends.
And that's where the awakening that happens. Some enlightenment awakening starts from here. For Janaka.
So how Ashtavakra has done it is, for instance, if you just go back to this, Nirapeksho, Nirvikaro, Nirbharaha, Shitalashayaha. So when he's saying this, he's not giving you theory. He's not giving you interesting ideas. So when he's saying Nirapeksho, he's not saying that you should be Nirapeksh. He's saying you are Nirapeksh. So what is the difference between that? Nirvikaro. He's saying that he's not Nirvikar Bhava, be Nirvikar. He's Nirvikaro, Nirbhara.
You are.
So, Shitalashayaha. So, what does that mean? What is the difference? Shitalashayaha. When you say that, you should be Nirapeksh, as to you are Nirapeksh, what's the difference?
I think you should be, you have a choice. You may...
It's giving you gyan.
It's giving you gyan that you should be,
Right.
You should think like this, you should feel like that.
Kunal, you should be a witness. So I'm giving you knowledge. It's now an idea. You should be.
Yeah, and then I can
So
choose
now
to
you will
accept
ask, no, but
why,
then you'll ask me,
how,
what is this witness? Then I'll tell you.
what do I do? Why?
But now if I tell you,
You are the
Kunal,
witness.
you are the witness.
Yeah.
Now, as an intellectual statement, that doesn't make sense. I mean, what do you mean I am the witness? I'm not the witness. I know it. Are you mad? So it doesn't make sense. But between these two people, these are extraordinary beings. And here's self-realized being saying, you are the witness. So this is what I meant by the immediate power of actualization. Because it is being said by a self-realized being, one who has become identified with the supreme truth. In other words, one who, as he speaks to you, is channeling Brahma itself. So when he or she, being like him, says, you are the witness, that state of being witness is transmitted directly to you. You become the witness. How can he say you are the witness and you don't become the witness? So do you see the difference between intellectual gyan and I don't have the word for the other thing, is because it's not gyan at all. It's the transmission of anubhuti. And it is being transmitted by one who's abiding in that state, who has completely identified himself with that supreme truth. And therefore, when he says you're that, well, you become that. The way the Gita happened between Sri Krishna and Arjun, you don't expect Sri Krishna to sit down and give an intellectual lecture to Arjun. So when he tells Arjun, you are the immortal soul, that state of being the immortal, that anubhuti of being the immortal, indestructible soul, is transmitted directly into Arjun's consciousness. Now, two things happen after this. I mean, of course, there might be just because the second adhyaya, the second chapter is about the joy, it's called joy of self-realization, where Janak starts singing of the free state, because he's now free. So in fact, it starts with Aho Niranjana Shanto Bodho Aham Prakrite Paraha. So he starts with that I am Niranjana, I am the pure, eternally pure, Shanto Bodho Aham. I am pure consciousness, I am at peace, I am complete peace. Not only I am at peace, I am peace. Shanto Bodho Aham. I am the calm, pure consciousness. Prakrite Paraha, beyond Prakriti. He's already realized. Now he's saying that I am that. So now, obviously, it might not follow immediately. There might be a lapse between the end of Ashtavakra's teaching, and I'm not even sure that teaching is the right word, and Janak's proclamation. So what would have happened between this and that would be that by a direct transmission of the Tattva Gyan through Anubhuti, I would say Anubhuti Shakti, through the very force of realization. So the transmission of Tattva Gyan through the force of realization would have entered deep into Janak's consciousness and would have taken root there. It's like if you're very fertile ground and I throw seeds, it will take root and then it'll sprout. So the Gyan, the Tattva Gyan, was cast into Janak's very fertile, very ripe consciousness. So it took root and then would have sprouted. Sprouted immediately or over a period of time is not important. Because these are processes that don't happen in time anyway. These are processes of consciousness beyond time. So the seeds would have been cast into Janak's consciousness and would have taken root and would have sprouted, and you would have Janak come back to his guru and know this. A wonderful proclamation. Aho Niranjana Shanto Bodho Aham Prakrite Pare. What a beginning, what a self-declaration.
I just wonder, Partho, for most all humans, this is contrary to our normal experience, where we are experiencing the body, but consciousness is something we can only choose to observe, care to observe, and then eventually deepen it, intensify it, and all that. But we attach ourselves with what we
But
can.
Kunal, that's not entirely true. We are experiencing the body, as I keep saying all the time. We are not experiencing the body. How are you experiencing the body?
I feel my hands, I eat
So
with it. There's sense organs. These are the
sense. So this is a sense construct.
correct. The interpretation in the brain.
So this touch you're experiencing as a touch, but you know what's really happening? This touch is, if you go to the science of it,
Yeah.
it's a question of the electrons repelling electrons.
Correct.
Right? Electrons and the outermost orbit of the atoms here, electrons repel electrons. Simple law of physics. So when you feel that, what you're feeling is not touch of the body, it's a repulsion of electrons.
Yeah.
So you're feeling an electronic force,
Correct.
which your brain is interpreting as touch. You're not experiencing the body. There's no such thing as body to experience. Body is just a sense construct. Shut down all the senses, your body is gone.
Yeah.
As happens in deep sleep.
Yeah.
Or in deep hypnotic stages.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or in deep meditative states.
And in comas also.
Yeah. So the body is not really a solid thing there to be experienced. It's just sense construct. So to say that, we are experiencing only the body and not conscious, not true, because we are actually experiencing consciousness all the time.
Yes, but
Just interpreting it as body.
Yes.
And then identifying with an interpretation.
Correct. So it's just like, I can never see my own eyes.
Yes, you can never see your own eyes. So you can never experience your own.
So my own eyes are like my consciousness. I cannot see it because it's everywhere. It is the everything. It is everything.
The seeing. It is the seer.
Yes.
Your eyes are seeing. So how can the eyes see?
Of course.
Themselves?
Of course. And best I can see is a reflection of my eyes from a mirror. But that'll be reflected.
Eyes. Actually, you're saying eyes. It's actually the vision.
Yes.
The vision working through your eyes. That vision cannot be seen.
Correct.
Even in a reflection, you can't see the vision.
Yes. And eventually it is interpreted in the brain. Eventually we are just driven by the sense organs that are interpreted in the brain. And that's what we attach with or identify with and connect with. Right? That's our normal daily experience. It's just like I think discussed recently that if we were born with a 3D virtual glasses, when we experience a 3D world and some world of dinosaurs or some games or whatever, if we are living with it all the time, we'll take that to be our reality. Though it is just a virtual reality.
Identify with it.
It is a virtual reality and we start identifying with it. But we are born with this brain, this brain which becomes part of our reality. And
because it's interpreting our reality.
It's interpreting our reality, and that's the only way we experience things without until we start questioning, until we come to a point where we start deeply observing what is it interpreting, why, how, who is interpreting, what's behind, what happens if mind is not there, and that's when we come to this kind of gyan, Vedanta, Gita, and these things, right?
So one of the tattva gyan that Ashtavakra conveys to us is this whole thing of what in Sanskrit we call darshanam. We call, that in Sanskrit there's no the actual word for philosophy as exists in the English language. It's called darshan.
Yes.
So darshan is philosophy, actually.
Yeah.
Strictly speaking, darshan is the tattva gyan. The darshan, from the word drish, to see. Everything is brought to seeing. So if you were to get into the perception of the Vedanti and get into what Ashtavakra is really trying to say, so he's saying that just if you come to darshan, see, without mental filters, without any interpretation. Even if the brain interprets, fine, don't take it seriously. Just come to pure perception. So if you were to come to that for a few minutes here in this studio, in this room, what would you see around you without any mental filters of interpretations or knowledge or memory or things that have been taught to you, you're conditioned to believe? What would you see around you? Pure seeing.
From eyes, the vision, senses.
Just seeing, perception, darshan. You would see forms only, wouldn't you?
Just forms. Yeah.
Just forms. Color would be part of the form, part of the description of the form. So you would see just forms, and no one's moving here, but if someone were to move, you would see gati.
Form moving.
Movement. So akar, gati. In pure perception, these are the only two things you will ever come to know. Akar, gati. The rest is all mental interpretation.
Yeah.
Everything. Just think about it.
Yeah.
If you were to just see the akar and the gati and not hear words and understand them intellectually or interpret them, the whole emotional content of your life disappears. It's gone. It's like seeing a person making a phone call from inside those old booths we used to have. And there's this guy inside who's talking on the phone very animatedly. And you're watching this guy, and you're saying, what a strange creature this is.
Yeah. They showed it in Matrix also, the way they show the binary form and movements, and that's it.
That's all
Yeah. Yeah, eventually, rather than me getting upset at what you've said to me, I just see some akar.
Yeah, and you wouldn't get upset if I were to say something very bad to you right now in a language you don't understand.
Correct. Yes.
You'll keep smiling at me.
Yes.
And I'll call you all kinds of very unkind things, which if I were to do it in a language you understand, you would probably hit me.
Yeah.
But you'll be smiling. So it's all to do with interpretation.
What would my hitting be? Hitting would also be just akar and gati.
No, you would actually hit me.
It is just some akar touching another akar.
Gati.
Gati.
Akar, gati.
Akar, gati.
But the thing is that if you come to pure darshan, just seeing and not interpret, not use your conditioned past knowledge and language to interpret in order to understand, then the world would immediately lose all emotional significance and depth. People say that would be a terrible thing. No emotional depth, no emotional significance. So what? The world would also lose all intellectual significance and depth. Again, though, people say that would be disastrous, and you would probably lose more than 90% of your spirituality because it's all words.
Yeah.
Everything would just disappear. Poof.
Yeah.
And what you would remain with would be the residue of it all would be your pure, unfiltered, unconditioned experience of what is.
Why is life not like that? Why do we have so much veils?
We work through the filters of the mind. We are mental creatures. We are trapped in our own minds and brains. And we can't see it.
So we are in the middle of evolution, which is not perfect.
Yeah,
arguably.
yes,
humans are just...
What is yoga? The meaning of yoga is accelerated evolution. If you wait for natural evolution, it will take you ages to touch enlightenment. But yoga or sadhana, whatever you want to call it, is accelerated evolution. You do in 10 years what you would need 10 lifetimes to do in the natural way. So we have to get out of the brain. The brain is primitive. You know that. However sophisticated the brain might be compared to the brain of a chimp, for instance. It's still very primitive. Our brains are very primitive. So to evolve to a higher consciousness, we need to rewire the brain. Otherwise, I find that Ashtavakra Gita, for instance, is enormously difficult to grasp with the old conditioned brain.
Yeah.
right? Right. I tell you that you are actually formless. Know yourself as the formless one. Okay, these nice sounding words. What does it really mean to you? If you really go by the old brain understanding and mental conditionings woven around it and the whole narrative structure and all that, the words really mean nothing.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
And that's why people can spend whole lifetimes reading such literature and listening to teachers and all that, and nothing happens.
Except that,
Brain is not changing.
yeah, as in Bhagavad Gita, brain is your friend, mind is your friend, mind is your enemy. So it depends.
Yeah, but here it goes beyond mind, Kunal.
Yeah.
To understand this kind of Tattva Gyan, you need a different restructuring, a re-engineering, if I may say, of the brain, a rewiring of the brain. Brain is body, right? How do you know the body? How do you sense the body? By the brain. Brain and the nervous system, that's the body.
Yeah.
Your body is just an extended sense organ.
Yes.
Brain, nervous system, and the organs, sense organs, right? So, and we have already discussed this many times, that if you go deep enough into the material structure of your brain and nervous system and of your body, you get to that indeterminate quantum zone where you're neither consciousness energy nor are you matter. But that quantum zone where you're both and neither. Both and neither. And if you can go there, you can re-engineer your body. You can change your body. You can bring about what the mother once called a cellular mutation to accelerate the next evolution. Anything can happen in that zone. So, if we need to understand, not understand mentally, grasp the tattva of the Gyan, let's put it that way, then we need to do some serious work on our brains and body. That is the next evolution. Then suddenly all this will become very relevant.
I feel, firstly, brain and mind has to evolve to start questioning its own reality, even to understand
Yes.
that this is just a sense organ. This is not the body.
Questioning its own reality,
So
which
now-
is why I always advise my students to read physics and biology. Nothing like a healthy dose of daily dose of physics to prepare you for the Vedanta.
Yeah, because I think physics go beyond the physical, I guess.
Yeah, and physics also, people shouldn't read it as, again, textual knowledge. That's not the way to read physics. Physics should open your brain and mind to something else that you can't see and touch. I mean, I'm touching solid wood here. It's entirely interpretation, wood and solid and everything. There's nothing there. Now, if I say Vedanta from the point of view of Vedanta, from the Vedantic standpoint, you'll probably dismiss it as, mysticism. But physics tells you exactly the same thing. It's not there. That solid substance that you feel you're touching, neither the touch is real nor the substance is real. Then what happens? Then it's, physics is, you can't see it, you can't feel it. You can only read about it. But then if you limit your reality to what you can immediately see and touch and feel, then you're living a very limited reality. Then we are trapped in our senses, and that's the problem with human beings everywhere. We are trapped in our sense reality.
Which is nonsense.
And
nonsense.
mysticism frees us from that. It just frees us from that. Sorry, you said something. I missed that.
Yeah, we're just trapped in our sense reality, which is nonsense, by the way. But I think I was
That was a
thinking,
Kunalism I missed.
yes. But I was just thinking, again, trying to draw analogies. I was thinking the virtual reality glasses headset we talked about multiple times in our last few discussions. I think, imagine we're born with that, we're living with that. Now, for us to feel that the world I'm experiencing is not virtual and it's not driven by some source code written somewhere in a program, we'll have to somehow get the question that is this real? Second, we'll have to take the headset off to realize that there is some other reality.
Yeah.
These two things need to happen exactly in our current life also.
Yes.
Same way, as you said, firstly, we need to have enough curiosity, some way of asking the question, questioning our reality. And then second, shutting the mind to experience it, that there is something
if you go
beyond.
back to your VR analogy.
Example. Yeah.
I liked what you said. The analogy is very interesting, that you were born with this VR
Yes.
headset.
Yes.
You're living that reality.
Yes.
Now, only two things can bring you out, that can make you put aside all that machinery and look at reality. One is a breakdown,
Yes.
a serious breakdown of the machinery itself.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
And two is if someone knocks you on the head.
Yes. Yeah, the Tattva Gyan.
And by four sticks.
Tattva Gyan.
Yeah, there's no third way. Who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And the sheer panic
or maybe
that one will get into, like you'd be petrified of removing something you've been fused with since your birth.
Yeah, the conditionings.
Yes,
Yeah.
the conditioning.
And I think, but we humans are lucky that we have access to those states even with our headset mind on, the dream sleep and the deep sleep. We experience it every day. That's the best analogy we got to get. That
Because those are glimpses of what happened.
those are the glimpses, what's beyond, what could be beyond, and they're subtler and subtler states. But if we are not questioning it, if there's not enough, there's a third way, in the VR analogy, that there is some hack in the system. There is somewhere.
So what do you think?
This is it.
These are all hacks in the system.
These are the hacks.
Somebody's
These are
hacked into the system.
These are the windows left for you to find. These are the treasures you can find and get lucky and hopefully evolve to another life, right? But
So every Vedanta guru has hacked into the system.
Correct.
And the matrix-like situation, trying to get you out. I think Morpheus was the one who was trying to get everyone out.
Yes. Yes. But beautiful. I mean, I think Ashtavakra, just this Gita gets it, and straight away, so blatant, so you can't interpret it differently. It's just so direct.
Because there is no interpretation possible here.
It's not poetic like Bhagavad Gita, where you can still have your own variants.
Even Bhagavad Gita, to a very large extent, you cannot interpret Gita. I mean, because whether it's Ashtavakra or Sri Krishna, they're not giving you a theory. They're not discussing philosophy. But they're telling you straight up, this is it.
Yeah. But this is way more direct, I guess. I see way more.
Yeah, this is way more radical.
Radical as well.
Because if you follow just the first adhyaya and just live it, realize it, do it, you don't need any other Gita after that. Because everything else, for instance, the Bhagavad Gita, the whole wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita is distilled into just a few verses of this, a few shlokas of this.
Yeah.
I mean, so much is just immediately cleaned out.
True. I think I was also wondering, the first chapter is enough to live, experience in silence and evolve from.
So people, when since we are doing Ashtavakra Gita, many of my students ask me how to study or read Ashtavakra Gita. So the one thing I say is, do not read it as a book, for heaven's sake. Don't from chapter 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and then say, okay, I've read the book. You read nothing. Do it as Janak probably would have. The first adhyaya is the Gyan given to you. Become intensely silent and receive that Gyan.
Yeah.
Take it into yourself as deep as you can in your inner silence and concentration. Develop that capacity of concentration and silence in order to receive. Otherwise, you won't be able to receive it.
Correct.
Your intellectual mind will reject it before it can even come in. Oh, what the hell? I mean,
Yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah. So it has to get in. It has to impregnate your mental consciousness, get right into the substance of your being. Allow that to happen. And then sit with it. Dwell on it. It should become your preoccupation. You should always be with it, with this Tattva Gyan, sloka by sloka. Because I mean, every sloka is related, of course. One takes you to the other, and the other returns you to the one, and it goes on like that. So meditate on it, so that it sinks deeper and deeper into your being, enters the very cells of your being. No, it enters the very vibrations of your being, that when you step out into your real world, you actually don't see the world as it is. This Gyan should be doing things to you. It should be changing the way you look at the world, the way you feel the world, respond to the world. If all that is not happening, what's the use of reading? Even one chapter of it, forget the book. So just one chapter is life transforming.
I agree.
Then you will come to the second chapter on your own. You will be like Janak, proclaiming your state of moksha to your guru, to yourself. And
Yeah, Partho, I think that's a great takeaway. Just meditate on every shloka, stay with it in
Yes.
silence, and then start observing carefully when you live the
yes.
so-called the real world.
And to give a practical suggestion,
Yes.
there are two ways of doing it. One is to develop that capacity for silent concentration and then read it, or read it to develop the capacity of silent concentration. It can work both ways. If you just take a shloka and just sit with that shloka in your mind throughout the day, whatever you may be doing, that whole day, you're just with that one shloka. And by the end of the day, you would have developed a degree of concentrated silence or a silent concentration.
Great idea, Partho. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for taking us through the first chapter.
My pleasure.
It's a
As always.
privilege as always, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.